launching something, so whether it's a product, a book, or a service, the most important thing to do before we even begin is to be really intentional, and then we can get really strategic about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. So let's first of all get really, really clear on what we're drawing our audiences or our customers or our readers' attention to. So firstly, get clear on what you want. Then let's get realistic about what we can achieve with the energy, the time, and the resources that we have. And let's get really clear on our timings. We need to give ourselves the appropriate amount of space, and that includes mental space, it includes emotional energy, and it includes physical time and space. So when we're releasing something new, we're effectively introducing something new, it takes a lot of our emotional energy, and we've already invested a lot of ourselves in creating the thing that we want to launch or release. But actually inviting your audience or inviting the public to then give you their attention and to keep and hold their attention, which is what we're often doing when we talk about launches. We're trying to keep people's attention for a certain amount of time. That requires energy from you. It requires mental energy. It requires emotional energy. It requires physical energy. So it's really, really important to make sure you're giving yourself the appropriate time and space and being realistic about how much you can handle within that time frame. When we're planning our launch or a campaign or a strategy, whatever we're going to call it, we want to consider with each element whether we're growing our visibility in general, because launching anything, you're going to have your main goals, and then there will be residual effects of the launch. So that will be, your visibility will grow because you're putting so much effort into launching. The visibility in general of your brand, of your name, of your profile, of your product will gather more attention. It will start to gather momentum. So it's also worth thinking about, well, what am I going to do with that momentum? Do we want to bring new customers or new readers into our world? And do we want to ultimately make sales? But it's getting really clear on which of those things is the top priority for your launch. And then getting clear on who we are launching to. But it's so, so important to really drill down into this. How are we going to reach them? What tools are we going to use? And what metrics and data are we going to use? So, and all of this is so dependent on who we're reaching. If you just want to launch through Facebook, for example, because you know that that's where your potential customers are, or whether you want to split it up between being partly an in-person launch, partly an online launch. So deciding on what tools we're going to use, whether it's going to be an event, etc. Then we want to look at what data are we gathering, what data have we already gathered to then inform what is going to work and how we're going to use it. So launching is about timing, having a plan, implementing it. So that's making sure that you've given yourself the time and the space and the room for your energy to be able to implement, and then to assess and course correct if needed. So assessment based on the data that you're gathering, the metrics that you have available to you. And that can be without getting too into technical stuff, it could be qualitative or quantitative. So we can have qualitative data, which is basically, say if we have an event and we're literally talking to the people who are at the event, what are we finding out? What are we discovering? Let's make a note of all the things that we're learning about our audience, about our potential audiences. If we're doing something through an email campaign, we're going to get data from that campaign, from whichever tool you are using. How many people are you writing to? How many people are opening the emails? How many people are clicking on various things? So all of these are giving you information that you want to be making note of, and you want to be assessing and course correcting, so adapting your strategy as and when you need to. So looking at the different tools for launching, Under marketing, we have our email list. So we're communicating with our followers, our readers, our customers. We can either do it via a structured newsletter, and by structured I mean having a certain number that go out certain times of the month, year, week, or we can have other sequences that we're using in our emails. So whatever email strategy you are using, so to have it structured, have it planned. Your website is another of your biggest marketing tools. So are you making use of your website? Are you demonstrating clearly on the website what you are launching, when your audience can expect to see it or access it? When will something become available? Are you using your website to share your testimonials, your social proof, the proof that other people have already experienced the product, the service? That sharing reviews, sharing their customer experiences, sharing reader reviews, etc. So looking at the website, is it performing the way you need it to? Is it presenting the information that you need it to? Social media, selecting the platforms that you're going to use consistently and regularly. So remember, there are no hard and fast rules about how often, people are always saying, how often do I need to post, etc., etc. The answer is do what works for you, but keep it consistent. Have a plan in place that you can follow regularly and consistently. I think that's really the biggest piece of advice that anyone can give in terms of using social media. The platforms that you enjoy using and the content that you are happy creating or having someone else create on your behalf that is communicating your voice, your brand voice, etc., the brand image that you want to portray. So selecting the platforms that you use, remember none of this should ever be accidental or just because you think everyone else is using that, so I should use it too, but using platforms that you know are going to reach the customers, readers, audience that you want and that you actually enjoy using or that you can fit into your daily, weekly routine regularly and consistently. It's easy to lose your way as you start ramping up marketing and social media and publicity, etc. I would always advise keep it simple, keep it to something that you can regularly handle, and only when when you're comfortable, then you can add more things in if you feel you are able to consistently handle it. And then we have publicity, which includes, under publicity, we would include podcasts, we would include bloggers, we would include blog tours if it's a book, we would include reviewers, we would include mainstream media, and that can involve things like interviews, it can be features, it can be images, it can be prizes, promotions, events. All of these things can fall under publicity. So again, that's saying to yourself, what goals do I want to achieve? What would be the ideal things that I would want to set myself up to try to achieve in terms of whether it's media coverage, whether it's becoming an interview guest on somebody's podcast or somebody's show, whether it's doing a guest blog, whatever it is, but get really, really clear on what those things are going to be. Whether it's running a competition through your newsletter, whether it's giving away prizes on your social media platforms. Be really clear, write it down, make a plan, try to figure out what you can handle with the time and the energy that you have available and the resources you have available. So creating a strategy that works for you. Timing is everything. So giving yourself the time and the space, but not just about what works for you, but what is your audience or your readership going to be looking for at the time you're launching? What things are they going to be reading about, talking about, looking at the particular time of your launch? So if you've decided, right, I want to make sales for Christmas. So, okay, everyone's going to be kind of, we're going to hit the kind of consumer frenzy time of year. How much time are we going to need to build up momentum, to build up excitement, to build up interest in your launch so that we're not going to get lost ahead of that busy Christmas period? Thinking about your time, your resources, your energy, thinking about what's going to be going on with your audience. Try to pin your launch to something real and relevant, or finding a hook or an angle. So that can be something in real life, what's going on with people, what's going on in real life, looking at the PR calendar for ideas and what auspicious days, holidays, calendar days are happening around the time of your launch. You might want to pin your launch to a particular day because it's celebrating something that's relevant for you, or it's drawing people's attention to something that you can then tie in with your launch. Then I want you to write a list of who you want to sell to or who you want to launch to. The more specific you can get about this, the better. For example, if you're launching a course, literally writing down the names of the people you would like to get into your course is a brilliant, brilliant way of really focusing, really honing in. And then the content that you create will be speaking to those people. And, brilliant advice I've had before from coaches is speaking to one person in your content is a brilliant way of pulling in the right people and repelling the people that you don't want, because that's just as important as bringing in the people you do want. If it's a book, write a list of the people you'd like to read your book. Look at the different sectors of the audience you'd like to reach. If they're 5-year-old girls, write down 5-year-old girls. If they're 65-year-old retirees, write it down. Write down who are the different sectors of people, different groups in society, and then we can start to think about how we're going to reach those people. Timing of how you're going to use your platforms and your chosen marketing tools to reach the audience. Thinking about how long will it take for your audience to warm up and then to take action. Very rarely do we ever take action after seeing or hearing something just once. So, as potential customers, potential buyers, we nearly always need a warm-up time, a warm-up period. It will depend on how much commitment you need from them, including the cost commitment. So if you're selling a low-priced product like a book, people may well buy books off the cuff. They see it and they go, oh yeah, I like the look of that. If it's a low-cost product, they're just going to buy it. If it's a higher cost thing, if it's a course, if it's a retreat, if it's a more expensive product, more high-end product, people will need time to think about it. So think about how much time is going to be required for people. If it's a brand new author, a brand new brand, we have to factor in, well, how long is it going to take for people to build up that know, like, and trust, which is vital across the board, whether it's a book, whether it's a product. So thinking about the time that people need to commit. So designing the launch, breaking it down into manageable pieces. So I know, some of you will use spreadsheets, some of you will use lists, some of you might use diagrams. Where will you put your time, energy, and resources? Connecting with your audience or intended readership or customer base. It's not just an imagined, vague customer, but a real and defined one. Speaking to people, brilliant way of making those direct connections, either in person or online. But every opportunity for direct communication is an opportunity to learn something about your audience or your customer. We want to find out as much as we can about the people that are buying from us. This is when we're talking about using data and metrics, this is what we mean. So what desire or need is your product or service fulfilling for them? Why are they buying from you? Knowing the most you can about that is going to help you to figure out how you can reproduce that process. What are you going to say to future buyers so that they will also buy from you? So the more you can learn, the more data that you can build, the better it's going to be for you. And of course, some of this will come from experience, some of this comes from the doing. But every time you do this, let's be collecting and gathering our data, whatever that looks like. It might not be figures, it might be, it might be reviews, it might be what customers have said to you. And so then we can start getting into which platforms, tools, and resources have worked for us in the past and which haven't. So we're not going to spend loads more time and energy doing things that haven't worked before, or we're going to adapt, we're going to course correct, we're going to assess what has worked, look at why something didn't work, and then we're going to adapt, we're going to change, and we'll try new things if we need to, or we'll slightly change things that we've done before. But having that information and being able to log that kind of information is incredibly important. So if it's selling books, who have we sold to in the past? Where have we sold? Who is engaged? What kind of people have given us reviews? What have they said about our books? What did they enjoy about them? All of that is really important information for you to be taking note of. And then getting creative, creating something, whether it's a theme, an idea, that could be an event, it can be a location, a venue, an activity, something that's relevant to bring your product or your service or your book to life. One brilliant way of creating more momentum, of launching something, of drawing people's attention to your thing, is to link up with other brands that you can work with, that you can share audiences with, that you can help each other in a kind of quid pro quo way. So brands that you could link up with locally, either from a geographical point of view or from a branding point of view. So what other brands are you aware of that could be in the same space, that have similar values, themes, motivations? Who could you work with? Who could you join forces with? You know, one brilliant practical application of this is for promotions or prizes. Is there a small business that you could join with so that they could donate some prizes if you were going to run a competition, for example? So they're going to get more eyes on their business, and they're going to help you to get more eyes on your business or brand. Or running events or readings. What are there any venues? Are there any locations? Are there any activities that are relevant to you? The more kind of ties that you can create with other brands and businesses that are going to serve you and serve them is brilliant. And that's a great way of kind of building up audiences, especially when you're starting from a small business or brand. Timely and relevant. So messaging, you've heard me say this before, but it's super important. Messaging wants to tie in neatly and nicely in terms of the landscape of what your intended audience is tuning into. So that brings us back to what's going on for your audience. What are they reading? What are they interested in at that particular point in time? What's going on in their world? What are they looking for? So your messaging wants to be speaking to that. So why do they want to buy this book? Why do they want to buy this product or this service? It's because they're interested in such and such a thing that's happening right now, or they need such and such a thing right now. So you, in your content, in your messaging, you want to be speaking to that. It wants to match with the timing tent poles of a campaign. So whether we call it a campaign or a launch, you're going to have key moments. So that could be publication day, or it could be when a course is launching day, or cart close. These are going to be key moments in your campaign. It could be pre-launch, it could be a price going up or down, it could be a flash sale. So these are key moments, key timings in your launch strategy, in your campaign, that you want to make sure that your messaging is going to be in line with. So points to remember. I'm bringing this back to with a PR launch or a marketing launch, especially if we're going for media coverage or mainstream media, podcasts, bloggers, all of these different platforms that we have available. You get one shot to launch something for the first time, and that means, with a magazine or a newspaper, you're going to get one shot to tell them about something for the first time. It's only news once. So that's what we want to be remembering, but we can do things with different sections of our audience. So we could launch something on social media, we can launch something in the press, we can launch something at an event. These are all different opportunities to launch the same thing, but each of those will happen for the first time. A particular group of people or with a particular media outlet, for example. Once it's covered by someone, it's not going to be covered by them in the same way again. So we're always being strategic with our timing, and we always want to start from the end and work backwards from there, starting from where you want to end up So whether that, that could be 3 months from publication day, for example, or it could be a month after carts open on a course or a service. So figure out what's the end point and work backwards in terms of your timing. And exploring and deciding on the angles or hooks that you're going to use for your launch. And that's something you want to do right at the beginning, is work out what are the key angles or hooks, what are the key things going on with people, going on with the audience, or who are the key audiences that you want to target. Because an angle can be an audience sector as much as it can be a topic that pulls people in.